Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out to be with us today. I'm just going to run through some quick housekeeping. If Ollie, if you could put that up on the screen for me. Thank you. So just to let you know that closed captions are available, so you can click on those at your end if you'd like them. Speakers have been invited to share a short verbal description, and that's to support anybody with visual impairment. And the chat function has been disabled because it's not always very friendly with screen readers. With that in mind, if you've got any questions, please do put them into the Q&A panel. My colleague Sean is here and will be available to answer some questions in the background, but mostly we'll be saving them for the end of the session when we can hear from our speakers. The session is being recorded, so we'll be sending out a link to this recording to everybody who's attending afterwards, and we'll also send the contact details of our speakers. And please, if you're on social media, do keep a lookout of what else we're doing this week. It's a really busy week, and if you've got anything that you want to share on social media, please do use the hashtag GfS Conference 21. At the end of the event, there will be a short survey, and we just really appreciate your feedback if you do have a couple of minutes for that. That would be great, thank you. If you don't mind going to the next slide, please, Ollie. Thank you. So I'm just going to, just to introduce myself, should get to that bit first, shouldn't I? My name's Emma Harris. I'm Senior Partnerships Manager with Governors for Schools, and I'm a school governor myself. I'm female, white, 41, with blonde-ish hair tied back. And just to cover what we're going to be looking at today. So we're going to hear from Ashley Callard. She's the Access and Engagement Assistant Manager at Durham University. We're joined by John Hunter, who is Student Recruitment Officer at the University of Birmingham, and Cilia Anderson, who's Interdisciplinary Programmes Manager at Imperial College London. So today we'll be looking at how you can engage your university networks most effectively. Some of you might already have networks established and you just want to hear from others about what they're doing. Others of you might not have got any networks set up yet, so you're looking for some more kind of motivation and guidance to get started. So I hope this session will be useful to all of you attending. Just to give you a brief bit of background about Governors for Schools and how we work with university partners. We've been working with universities in partnerships for over a decade with the aim of attracting and supporting staff to become school governors. The reason that we do that is both for the breadth of skills and for the passion for education, and also the support that universities offer to their staff to become governors. We work with university partners in lots of ways to support recruitment of staff as governors, but we know that the long-term support of a network really gives those volunteers the support that they need to be even more effective, share best practice between each other, and develop themselves even further in the role. And a network also has the benefit of helping to raise the profile of the governor role, showing that the university actively supports staff to become governors and that the work they do is really valued. So I'm really pleased that we're able to hear from our speakers today and how they've approached building governor networks themselves and keeping people engaged. Ashley Callard from Durham University sadly can't be with us in person today, but I do have a video to share. But we will be hearing from John Hunter, who joined the Student Recruitment and Marketing team at the University of Birmingham back in 2017. Alongside his role, he's led and established the Governors for Schools scheme with us, with relationships with colleagues across the university, and that's been in the last 12 months. Although it's a fairly new network, the scheme has grown significantly and aims to continue to grow across the variety of staff members across the university. And he feels that the network's been a great way for staff to collaborate, so I look forward to hearing lots more from John. And then we're going to hear from Cilia Anderson, the Interdisciplinary Programmes Manager in the Outreach Department of Imperial College London. Cilia set up the School Governors Network at Imperial in late 2016, so it's quite well established now, and that was in response to the university's societal engagement strategy. And since then, her network has grown from being unknown to being a very lively, linked up network of staff. So again, very much look forward to hearing more from Cilia. We're then going to have some questions at the end. So to get things started, Ollie, if you could play us our video of Ashley, that would be great, thanks.
Hi everybody, my name's Ashley Callard. I work in the Access and Engagement team at Durham University, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the Governors Initiative that we set up at our university. I'd like to send my sincere apologies that I can't be with you live today. I really wanted to be here and I was really upset that I wasn't able to come live, but the opportunity to use technology and do a video meant that I'm hopefully still able to share our experiences with you today. If anyone has any queries or questions after this, please do feel free to get in touch with me. You can contact me at a.a.callard@durham.ac.uk. I'd be happy to answer any queries or questions, and I hope to hear from you soon. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Governors Initiative that we set up in collaboration with Governors for Schools at our university. We started our relationship in around 2018, and at that point we had around 8 staff members who we'd identified who were already school governors. One of our strategic drivers in the university was to make sure that as many staff members as we could get were going to be governors. We set ourselves a target of having 40 school governors by 2022 to 2023. And we're really pleased that we were able to exceed that target very quickly in our relationship with Governors for Schools. We started our initiative with a launch event, and that was a launch event that was advertised through all internal channels and had membership from strategic leaders and the senior management team who were able to come to demonstrate the strategic importance of becoming a school governor to the university. That event attracted around 40 or 50 staff members, so it was quite heavily attended. And following that event, we then started our relationship with Governors for Schools in terms of recruitment. We launched the network at that same event, and that network was a peer-based network for staff who were governors or who were interested in becoming governors, so that we could support each other going forward and have a central form of support. We found the network to be a really useful form of support going forward, and it's still in kind of existence today, and that's a network that sits within the team that I work in and I currently manage. The network itself provides a range of support for our network members, and we found that these are particularly useful. One of the big forms of support that we offer is regular events. So every term in a former life before COVID, we would be on site. So we would have network and breakfasts, network and brunches, or after work drinks. We would all get together, share our experiences, and just create that network and kind of find out a little bit more about each other and how we could support each other in our governance journey. During COVID, we found it to be a particular challenge to keep people engaged in a virtual world. So I'm very much looking forward to be able to going back face to face, but I'd be particularly interested to hear from members who've been successful in having online engagement with networks, because that's one thing that I feel we've struggled with particularly. As well as the network and having regular events, we invite guest speakers along. We've been really fortunate to have Governors for Schools who are always at the end of the phone or end of an email and are always coming along to our events to be able to show support, share their knowledge and expertise, and ultimately engage with our members further. We've also been really supported by one of our colleagues, Julian Millard, who works with the National Leaders of Governance, and she's also been really generous with her time and expertise in terms of sharing best practice and putting on opportunities for our staff to come along, ask questions and find out key areas of governance. So for example, we recently held a roundtable discussion on academisation, which was really popular within our network. One of the big initiatives within the School Governors Network is to try and incentivise staff to take part. We found that the incentives that we offer here at Durham were really popular for our staff members and helped them engage in governance. As governance is a voluntary experience, we understand that it could be quite difficult for staff to find the time. So at the university, we have a staff volunteering policy. That means that staff who are on a full-time contract can have 35 hours a year to be able to volunteer, and that's prorated for part-time colleagues as well. At line manager discretion and in line with business needs, staff members can use those time periods as they see fit. They don't have to take them all in one block, so they can split them out individually, and that worked quite well for governance because we do find that our members, particularly if you have a meeting towards the end of a working day, so for example 3 till 5, they can count those hours within their working day, so it does make it a lot more accessible for staff members to do that. Staff members who engage in the full 35 hours a year are automatically granted a free ILM level qualification in volunteering and community engagement, which has been another big incentive as well, and has helped show our commitment and recognise the achievement that staff who do volunteer can kind of qualify for. One of the additional things that we do for our staff to again incentivise and to showcase our appreciation of their work is that around the same time as the network started, the ADR process, the annual development review process that staff undergo in professional support services at Durham, included reference to wider engagement within the university. So we encourage all of our members who are school governors to include that within their ADR, and that is kind of formally recognised within their performance. A few further things that we've done within our network that have worked quite well. is we've launched a buddy programme. The buddy programme was quite good because it meant that very experienced colleagues were able to match with our newer members to showcase best practice and just to try and provide a little bit of a safe space to ask questions in a less kind of intimidating and formal manner than in a board meeting at your first governors meeting, for example. We also do regular comms, so we have Microsoft Sway resources that we send out terminally to our membership to try and update on main kind of events that are happening, news in the sector, and also any in-house information that we want them to be able to know. Yearly, we typically try to hold 2 recruitment events a year to try and increase our membership, and that's kind of one of our aims strategically going forward, is to consistently increase our numbers of staff who are engaging and volunteering through governance, because we all know it's a very important and very engaging and useful type of volunteering experience. For us, one of our big challenges has been retention. So we found that staff are really interested and engaged in the opportunity. They take part in it, and then they realise that it can be quite a challenge. It can be something difficult to maintain. So what we've had to do to kind of encourage our membership to continue going forward in line with our strategic targets is to continue to reinforce the benefits of governance, not only to themselves professionally, but also kind of the benefits that they will be able to give schools in terms of showcasing their expertise. We try to have individual relationships with staff members. So if you come to a recruitment event, I'll always follow up and try and have an individual one-to-one meeting afterwards to discuss any kind of queries or concerns that staff members might have. And that has been quite useful in terms of ensuring that people who are at the recruitment event do follow through with applications. Or if we find that it's not right for them or it's not the right time, we still have that relationship. So if they ever do want to get back in touch, they know that they can get in touch with me and we can kind of re-pick up and re-establish that relationship going forward. In terms of our biggest success, what I would say is when we launched the network, we had a really big interest straight away. We started, it was about 8 or 9 staff members who we knew were governors at the start of the intervention, and within our first 2 years, we'd got up to 60 staff members, so we kind of exponentially increased our staff engagement at that point. For us, our challenge going forward is maintaining that. We're currently sitting on around 45, and obviously with tenures finishing at different times and staff commitments, those numbers are constantly fluctuating. So for us, our next big step is to maintain that engagement going forward. Always keen to hear new ideas, so if anyone listening today has any ideas about continuing engagement rates, please do let me know. I'd be very keen to hear more. Other than that, I'd just like to thank you for listening. Hopefully I have an opportunity to collaborate with you in the future going forward, and if you have any queries or questions for me, please do get in touch. But other than that, I will hand over to my next speaker. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciated talking. Bye.
Great. I hope you found that useful from Ashley, and I know she is more than happy to be contacted after today, so I will send you her details in an email after this event. But for now, I'm delighted to introduce John, who's going to be talking a little bit about the Governor Network experience from the University of Birmingham's perspective. Thanks, John.
Excellent. Thanks, Emma. Hello, everyone. So my name's John Hunter, Student Recruitment Officer at the university, sort of mid-30s, white, dark hair, glasses and a beard. The beard seems to have appeared during lockdown and not gone away. So I've been asked today to talk to you in a little bit of detail about what we do at Birmingham and how we've established, and as Emma alluded to at the start, we're a fairly new network really, but something that over the last 12 months has really developed. So interesting hearing Ashley's points there actually around running events physically. That's something that we've not actually been able to do during the time of setting up this network. So we've very much had an advantage really of the digital delivery of things, and it's actually brought the university probably closer together at times through links on Zoom and using Teams and those sorts of things as well to find out a little bit more about what everyone does. But so the reason why sort of the links were established or the role was particularly given to me. So I sit within the student recruitment team at the university and spend a lot of time working with schools and colleges, interacting from a recruitment point of view, but also supporting and helping where we can. We sit very closely within the outreach team as well at the university, who have some strong links across a number of different partners through access and participation plans and those sorts of routes as well. But actually what we were finding is there was quite a few staff already governors at schools, and that kind of network was starting to talk to each other anyway. but actually then governors for school approached us and vice versa. And that's kind of where this sort of link started to come through, and the ability to sort of create this team as such of visitors, staff that support and help. So personally, I'm not a governor. My dad is a chair of governors, so I know everything that goes on, and have grown up experiencing the countless meetings and things that he has to attend, and policy changes and things over time. So I'm taking a sort of step away from it, actually, to be able to sort of almost facilitate what's done at the university. So I think there's two factors to really talk about. So one is, what's the advantage of being a governor? Where does the interest come in? And these were some of the questions that we were asking some of our colleagues at the start. And a lot of colleagues have said how much it's helped them from a personal development point of view. So helping from working down the line and going into future careers or future roles, or applying for different roles. So there's that benefit behind a lot of the things that are going on here. And that's where we've been able to gather interest from new graduates as well, who's recently started at the university, that are looking to almost career develop themselves and upskill in a way, whether it's they might have no finance experience whatsoever within their role, but actually in a school they might sit on that sort of area as a governor. So we really wanted to establish this network to really sort of help support staff, but also help inform decisions as well from a university point of view. So how can we talk to our governors, and how can our governors talk to the schools to support each other there as well? So it's very much a two-way way of developing things. We're quite fortunate. We've got 36,000 students and 7,000 members of staff. So we know that there is a lot of governors out there, but actually bringing them all together was a challenge in itself to start with. So what did we do? The first thing that we did was work around our internal communication. So there's a weekly email that goes out to all staff, and we popped a message in there just to see if there was any interest in this particular network being formed. And it's something that we saw a great feedback on. We created a form in which we just asked students to, not just staff even, I could tell I'm used to talking to students. We're asking staff to let us know what kind of school they're at, what level of governor they are. Are they a parent governor, or is it something active? And actually, we've got a huge diverse range of governors at the university. And then it's working really closely with governors for schools. So we decided to work with, we'll work alongside Sean to really talk through what can we deliver as a launch event, really, to get this network going and just to ask questions. So we had an original interest of around 60 people that claimed that they were a governor, or they were interested in becoming a governor. And we ran a session which we had just under 40 staff get involved in and come along and ask questions. It was great. We had Laura, who's a chair of governors within our School of Education department, talk about her experiences and how that's really helped her, particularly from a career point of view, but also as a parent as well, that involvement and those types of things. And one of the key things that came from that session really was actually a way to communicate to each other, a way to ask questions, a way to approach things that they might not necessarily have known who to approach apart from inside their school. So using Microsoft Teams, we set up a Teams channel. We've got a university Teams channel there now, where all colleagues that are a governor that wish to be part of the channel are part of that. And what they often do is just messaging each other really with particular questions. So I had a look earlier on today. There was particular questions around how any support about stepping into a vice chair role from a governor role, advice of going into a multi-academy trust as well, and being a governor within that particular schemes. Any particular support for special school governors as well. So that's kind of got a few colleagues that are governors at special schools, talking around permanent exclusions as well, and their experiences within that, and the processes and the things that go through. Again, staff redundancies and staff appeals, those kind of sort of HR questions that they would have, and equally it's sharing the resources as well that have been brought together by our governors for school, or we use LinkedIn Learning, for example, and there's been some really useful resources that have been shared amongst staff. So it's quite an informal network, and I think that's something that was something that the staff wanted. They didn't want it to be too formal. They didn't want to meet every month and that kind of thing. But where things need to, or we feel that we need to launch or increase, so I think that's something that we will continue to do. And now the academic year is restarting, our plans moving forward is to try and recruit more governors that either are already governors at the university, or equally bringing in people that might be interested in being a governor, and maybe creating that buddy network within that Teams channel and those kind of things as well. And so I think that we're really thinking about is how do we get our UAB graduates to become governors as well, and how do we work alongside that network? Do we need two separate networks for that because of internal and external and those kinds of things? And equally for new starters as well, within inductions, those kind of things, is that a way to try and promote some sort of learning and development opportunities as well as part of the scheme? So those are kind of some of the key themes that we're really thinking about really. But what the network has done is allowed the community engagement to increase as well. Second City, lots of schools, different types of schools within the city as well, and the surrounding areas. And we've got really senior members of the university, and also new starters at the university, all participating in the network, which is great. And it's a really good way for everyone to communicate and work through things there. That's it for me.
It was really useful. Thanks, John. It's great to hear how far you've come so quickly with it, I think, and especially like you say with that, you know, it's like burden of a pandemic, but actually that kind of working out maybe for the best in some ways. Cilia, it would be great to hear from you now and hear your experience from a more established point of view, perhaps.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me in today. So my name is Cilia Anderson. I work in the outreach team at Imperial College London. Apologies if you can hear lots of noise in the background. That is my neighbour's scaffolding going up. So very unfortunate timing, I'm afraid, but that's the beggars can't be choosers when you work from home. So yes, as I said, we have quite an established network now at Imperial. It was set up back in 2016. When there was a big sort of cross-college initiative to come up with a societal engagement strategy. So we had input from across the university, lots of people contributed to that strategy, and one of the items that came out was to have support for school governance at the university. I have to admit, I didn't really know what that meant at the time very much. I've been working with schools for 10 years as a, you know, from my outreach perspective, we usually work with teachers, getting frustrated when teachers left their jobs because you have the good ones and they go and you can't get into the school anymore and you can't get hold of the kids and you're relying on newsletters. And I guess as anyone working in outreach, that's the nature of your job, really. That's how you deal with schools. The School Governance Network was set up back in 2016, and because it was quite a senior buy-in, so it was a college strategy, we had the Vice Provost heading it up, who actually put the call out to staff to say, if you are a school governor and want to be part of this network, please respond. We did have good 25 people, I think, coming back to us at the time, and had, you know, quite a sort of high-profile chaired meeting from Vice Provost, bringing them in to you know, a meeting where we went through what people's experiences were really as school governor and what they needed from a network. It turned out that a lot of people had issues with line management for actually doing their role at all, so they had to sneak away and do it on the sly. So the first thing we had to do was actually go through our HR policies and find that we did actually have HR policies in place already, allowing people to take time off from their work to do school governance, but it wasn't actually advertised very well. It was kind of bullet point 3, page 6 of some very well hidden policy in HR. So I think the first thing we did was to start setting up web pages, pushing out this information to staff to let them know that actually we have a strategy now saying that we want people to sign up as school governors. This is what we will do for you. But of course, the next part of the equation then was, how do they actually become school governor? And that's when we came across Governors of Schools, which was the perfect dating agency for us, kind of just filling that part of the equation that we couldn't do, which was linking into the schools that needed governors and linking our staff that wanted to become a governor together. So that's been a really good setup for us, really, ever since. We've had a steady state sort of network of 50 going forward since then. Started growing it out into alumni. We've also got some students governors actually on board now, which I don't really understand how you can be a student at Imperial and a school governor, but they seem to manage. I think, you know, before pandemic, obviously we had regular meetings. We had a sort of online communication going as well in forms of mailing lists that we sent out. I think the pandemic, in some ways, getting everybody on Teams hasn't been a bad thing for the network, because alumni, of course, can get onto that. Our students can get onto that. We can share documents there. When there's training opportunities coming in from governors of school, I can post it out there and people respond. They can chat between themselves. So it's been quite a nice addition in some ways, but we still have our sort of termly network lunches run on Teams now. So our sandwich budget is a very big plus, unfortunately. But it is, again, from an outreach perspective, it's a great opportunity for us to actually link into schools about issues that we want the schools to know about, be it outreach opportunities. To the last one we had last week was in terms of refugees and asylum seekers and what schools can do in order to inform their students with insecure immigration status as to what support there is out there. Because what we have found in outreach is that some students will come through our programs not knowing that they haven't got the immigration status they need to access student funding, and that comes at the point of A levels, which is awful, of course. So again, you know, that's information that we need to get to the schools, but we get to the schools now by the school governors. So yes, I think it's quite a nice, very easy to manage network. Easy to manage because it's quite organic, very much fed in from the governors as to what they need, and from outreach what we need them to tell schools. But yes, it does. It's a nice network, and also I think our aim for the future. So the college sees this very much as a way of linking in schools, but also a way for staff to grow their professional development in a way that we can't do in-house. I am aware that most people in a school governance network are senior staff at the moment. So there will be directors and managers and more senior posts. So we are trying to push it out to every level of the college as a professional development opportunity, and for people who might want to progress in the role but haven't got the opportunity in their role to get that experience, to sit on a board to make certain decisions, that this could be a good stepping stone for them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you ever so much. That's been really useful to hear about a network that's been going so long. We will come to questions, so if anybody's got any questions, you can put them in the Q&A chat. I just wanted to ask, though, you both mentioned that kind of quite high level of buy-in. Do you think you have to have that to have a governance network work, or do you think because actually they're quite organic, maybe that isn't as important? Any thoughts on that?
I think from my point of view, senior management involvement hasn't been that significant, really. They've been involved because they are a governor in that sort of sense. So it's not something that I feel necessarily that the kind of that top-down sort of approach to it has been essential for what we've done. I think the word of mouth and departments talking to each other and colleagues talking to each other has really helped with how things focus. Whether moving forward, in order to raise the profile again, we might need to go up to senior management. That is something worth considering. But at the moment, the network, the way it's established, is actually bringing together the community that was already there to an extent, but actually formalizing it in that way, so then we can enhance it further.
Fantastic. Cilia?
I think it certainly helped in terms of launching it, and I think it helped in terms of making making people, staff taking this back to their management if they had issues with management in terms of taking up a governor role. So there were quite a few who had difficulties with the managers, and I think that senior buy-in and the sort of strategy level was very helpful for that. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think, if it was an organic sort of grassroots networks growing, I think that would be as efficient probably. I think for us, we didn't actually have a network before. It just kind of grew from the strategy. So it's, I guess it's two different ways, and not one is better than the other.
Good to hear that both different routes have worked, actually, because there's not always the opportunity for that kind of higher level buy-in. So it's good that it's worked in that organic way as well. One of the things I was going to ask about was, I think, John, you mentioned potentially buddying people up in your network, and whether that's kind of started again, I guess, whether that comes quite naturally, or whether there's plans to kind of formalise any sort of buddy system within networks.
Yeah, so we have a mentor scheme across the university anyway. So we encourage a lot of particularly new starters or our colleagues that want to progress to buddy up in that sort of way. But I also, the way that I've kind of seen it is actually there's 3 or 4 colleagues within the Governors for School network that are the ones that are responding to particular questions from the new starters and that kind of thing. So it's more of a kind of informal buddy system which has been created as the kind of go-to people to ask questions, and there's certain things that I can respond to answer, but actually they're kind of the go-to people as such because of their experience. So they're really willing to give up their time, and I think that's it. It's great if that's the case. Whereas if you are struggling a little bit, I think it's kind of how to formalize that buddy process is probably something to think about it in more detail.
Sorry, there's an aeroplane going over. Excuse me, putting myself on mute. Brilliant. And I think one of you mentioned about potentially involving alumni, or beginning to think about involving postgraduate, and whether you'd see those as separate networks, or do you think there is value in bringing some of those people together, perhaps the more experienced staff governors, again supporting newer postgrads? Celia?
Yeah, so we've had quite a good interest actually from alumni recently, and I guess in terms of from a personal gains point of view, in terms of outreach, what we need is very much showcasing careers. So I think it is a nice link for us to have that into alumni, because alumni have been, I think, more than before looking for opportunities to engage in outreach type of activities over the last year and a half. School governance is one of them, but then it's easier to reach out to them again when you're looking for role models. And in the Northeast, what careers have people gone into? We're based in London, but it is a good way for us to actually reach different parts of the country.
Yeah, that makes sense. Go on, John.
Yeah, and I think that's something that kind of our network can continue to grow. I think there is an awful lot of alumni out there that are governors as well. And again, it's understanding where those networks are, where they lie, what sort of links have people got, and how can that support. So the way the university sets up, we're very much separate departments in that sense. So it's actually an internal sort of messaging really there to grow that externally. So maybe we do have 2 franchises as such of our network, one for alumni and one for current staff as well. So I think it's those kind of wider conversations that we need to have, and again, always useful to hear other people's feedback of how it works for their institution as well, because we all know universities are very complex places.
We had a session this morning actually talking about engaging alumni, and there was some similar conversations going on about perhaps the challenges more so in engaging alumni networks of governors, but actually again that move to digital having really kind of unlocked some of that. I have got a question from the floor. What support and funding, if any, are you given from your institutions to run the network?
We have a sandwich budget usually.
Good enough, really. It's more than most government boards.
Quite a lot if you're at Imperial. Yeah, we do have a bit of funding, not loads. I think the main kind of in-kind contribution is the time off, 5 days per staff member. And yeah. Yeah,
fair enough. John, anything?
So no budget from our point of view. Again, it's staff time which is given as part of it. So as I said, we've only established this during the pandemic, so actually sandwich budget was never taken into consideration. However, definitely adding that to the list now for future. But yeah, so it's not something that we have, but it's the time for staff that's the really crucial part, and the opportunities for learning and development, which governance is classed as.
Yeah, definitely. And just to kind of mention what Ashley mentioned at the start in her video, I know that they do offer an ILM qualification, so they've linked up with Institute for Leadership and Management and are able to offer their staff that kind of free, I think it's a level 3 ILM certificate when they've done so many volunteering hours, which, you know, isn't necessarily to do with funding, but it is for that volunteer. That's really valuable because they're not paying for that training. Another question, what engagement tactics have you tried which worked or perhaps haven't worked in engaging your network? And that links to another question where someone's saying that actually it's been harder to engage people during the pandemic, harder to get them going kind of virtually, talking to each other. Any suggestions there?
From my point of view, the internal comms messaging is a real key launch point, really, and being able to capture that data. So being able to create a form for an event management system or whatever you've got in place at your institution is a really good way to capture that data of just people that are interested in that particular session. And then following up that with communications and the launch session. And there were several colleagues that were unable to attend the launch session that actually then spoke to their teams or colleagues across the university that were involved. So I think that kind of that initial launch and then that kind of anecdotal marketing really of the network has worked really well from our point of view. Yes, there's lots that we can do further to enhance it, but that worked well. And equally the Teams channel is kind of a never switched off kind of system, so we don't need a face-to-face meeting for people to ask questions, and that network is going through there. So yeah, Microsoft Teams is a really good way to share information, and equally the stuff that's sent through from Governors for School as well, popping that into their Sparks conversation as well. So it's not forgetting about it, but just keep prompting occasionally as you go through.
Fantastic. I mean, there's sort of links in the approach that you've taken that it is perhaps that more organic, people starting their own conversations. But somebody's asked, what topics do you suggest to get more serving staff to join a network? Is there anything that you've encouraged governors to talk about that's been that kind of spark that got them really engaged?
I think we've left it for a while. We left it to governors to kind of come to us with topics that they wanted. So we had the dates in the diary quite far in advance, and kind of put a call out once in a while to say if there is anything that you need. You know, joining a multi-academy trust was of course high up on the agenda. But we have recently been driving the agenda forward quite a lot from an outreach perspective. So given that, you know, we have had, when there's new initiatives coming in, we had, you know, things last year around the new programs we're bringing in for Black students at the college, and the kind of background for why that is needed. So giving them an introduction to the sort of data that we use, internal performance data, intake into Imperial, etc., so that the governors kind of see that in the context of it not just being a headline serving strategy, but actually something that is required. Similarly, we've had presentations from staff that have been working in pupil referral units, and around, you know, the impact, you know, governors serving on exclusion boards, the impact excluding students, although we all understand that sometimes it's the only way, possibly, but the impact it will have on their lives. So to do that with a kind of context of not immediate remedy, but actually a long-term effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, those are the students that we sometimes see in outreach.
Okay. Yeah, it puts it all in context, really.
Exactly. So it is very much from an outreach perspective if we're running it, but we are open to suggestions.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. John, anything you've had that's...
Yeah, so I think sort of a lot of the questions that have been raised around more HR processes such, so things like exclusions and interview panels and those kind of things, or it's actually sharing the resources that are around internally as well. So particular courses and stuff that people might find of use within our personal development team. And then I think sort of going back to previous points around actually us asking questions and not being scared to ask the network questions around centre assessed grades, for example, and the impact that that's had on schools this year. Okay, that's only a certain percentage of our schools that or our governors that are in secondary or FE routes, but actually asking those questions and then that almost formulates a sort of response from people as well. So it's about keeping people up to date with the university's approach to things as well. So kind of that internal communication is a really good way just to spark conversations. You're not going to engage everyone, but everyone might read it and they might not answer it. So I think it is that kind of thing to think about. It's what measures success of engagement really, and it's about keeping people informed. That's the key to this network, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good point, actually, that your secondary governor is going to have different things on their mind and on their wish list to talk about than, say, me as a maintained nursery school governor. So actually, your governor network is never going to be homogenic. There's going to be so many different things that they want to discuss that actually, if you're only engaging a small amount in certain topics, that's quite natural, really, I think. Would you agree? Great. So I've got another question from the floor. How do you recognise governors for their contribution? Is it part of your strategy to do that? And do you, for example, get given any messages from senior leadership team that you can share with them?
No.
No. Okay.
It's actually a really good idea. I might just nick that if that's okay. We don't actually give them any recognition apart from the sandwiches. No.
Still good. Yeah. John, anything from you?
Not from our point of view, but again, yeah, very good suggestion, very good idea. And again, I also like the idea from Durham as well around the ILM stuff and the impact that potentially has. So that would be useful to know how they went about that, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you talked about in terms of the policy, Cilia, particularly about how that had been quite hidden in terms of the support that they can have and raising the profile to have those conversations. I think we do need to acknowledge that as a benefit because not all employers are able to offer that, and that's why, you know, being employed by the university and them having these networks is really useful. Just thinking about the conversations that I was in this morning with alumni networks. I know University of Manchester and University of Wolverhampton were talking about sending thank you messages to their alumni networks at certain times of year as well. So there's all those kind of things that can be built in too. Great stuff. Let me just go to another question. You bear with me 1 second. Do you think you will go back to face-to-face? Well, John, do you think you will start? Cilia, do you think you will go back to any face-to-face meetings of governor networks when you can?
The sooner the better for me.
Yeah, you're missing your sandwiches.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, but I think in general, it's just, I think that, I mean, usually we would have the school governors network as a presentation, Q&As, sandwiches, of course, but the sandwiches are really there because then people mingle. Yeah, and have a chat. And those conversations, I mean, I went to the office yesterday for the first time in a long time where there was actually a few other colleagues there. And within half an hour, we had resolved quite a few things just by chatting. And although I don't mind Teams and it's got a lot of benefits, I do think having in person when we can will probably be brought back. Possibly what we're talking about at the moment is having a hybrid model because we are aware that quite a lot of people won't be able to travel, especially our alumni who don't live in London. There will be people who continue to shield So we're looking at the moment for all our activities, actually, how we can deliver it as a hybrid moving forward. But that's
be good to see how that goes, and yeah, to keep that engagement level being flexible in that way. Brilliant. John?
Yeah, I think hybrid's the word of the year, isn't it? Kind of what is hybrid, and I think that's probably a key thing for us to think about as well. I think at some point we will have a face-to-face meeting, and I think it is those things that it was just talked about, actually, those kind of anecdotal conversations, those coffee shop chats, as I like to call them, that we've all missed, actually, and you do learn so much. And well, we've been back on campus quite a bit recently, and will continue to be, but in that hybrid model as well. So we're not going to be back all of the time. So when is the best time to position these kind of meetings and that kind of thing? Or do we need to also have them digitally as well? So do we have the presentations that are done virtually, but also face to face? So I think there's a couple of questions to ask, and we won't know till we've done it. And like anything that we're doing at the moment, it's trying to see what works and what doesn't work, and this is a great almost sample size, really, to see where the demand is there across staff moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that relates quite nicely to something that we kind of trialed with Durham University, because we knew that governors were missing that kind of coffee shop chat bit. So we trialed a networking event with them. So we had a couple of different topics, and they could go into different breakout rooms. It wasn't about us delivering a session, it was about a load of governors being in one room and having a conversation broadly structured around one topic to support each other, and have those conversations that go off in different tangents that would just, you miss a little bit on Teams, I think. And actually it's not quite face to face on Zoom, but it is another way of communicating. So if anybody's interested in that sort of approach, we did have a networking event yesterday that was open to all governors, and we've got one tomorrow that I'm running on governor development and parental engagement, where people could just drop in and have chats around those subjects. And then there's another one on Friday, which I think is mostly around diversity. So just to kind of plug those events, anybody's welcome to drop into those conversations. So I do have, it's not really a question, but somebody saying the new ways of working and staff not going onto campus is potentially a challenge, but maybe the buffet lunch will bring them back. Which I think is fair. Brilliant. I think if we just maybe draw to a close with one last question for you both, what do you think is the main gain of your staff governor network to your staff? Maybe one thing each that you think's the one thing that they would say, yes, that's what I love about this.
I think from my point of view, and the feedback from the governors is actually to be able to talk to someone outside of their school about being a governor. And I think sometimes it's about being able to share that best practice, share that understanding, and the ability to communicate, because there's questions that they might want to ask which they don't want to ask their governors because they're fairly new to the network. And I think it's really good from to almost buddy up those experienced with the newbies, but equally the experienced ones being able to share their thoughts and concerns as well. And I think that's something that certainly our network feels a benefit for this being established.
Good, that's good to hear. Cilia?
I'm glad that you said that, because I had two things and I didn't know which one to choose. The staff one, and we also, I think also for staff to actually meet people from different faculties, departments, hierarchies, levels of work, and exchange ideas with them. But I think as an actual networking with different people in the college that you would otherwise never meet, I think that's been a real bonus.
Fantastic. Right, if there's no more questions, I think we will wrap up now and just say a massive thank you to Ashley in absence, but also John and Cilia. It's really great to hear about all the work that you're doing with your governor networks, and I hope that has inspired lots of you from universities that are here to think about what we can do next. I'm going to send a slide afterwards with contact details, so feel free to get in touch with any of us. And also just don't forget to have a look at the other sessions that we're running this week. We've got some really great speakers, as well as John and Cilia, for the rest of the week. So if you do get 2 minutes to complete the survey that's coming up at the end of this session, that would be really useful. And just thanks ever so much again for sparing your time today, and I hope you found it useful. Thanks a lot.